How's everyone doing? I see your smiling faces, and we have people popping in, and I see James. Good morning, James. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. And I see Allison. Good morning, Allison.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, students. And I see a lot of you have your cameras on. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. If you are driving or don't have a camera, you can feel free to leave your camera off, but we would prefer to see everybody's smiling faces. And so thanks for putting good morning in the chat. It's very nice, very nice. So it's 8 a.m. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the first Leadership Development Workshop for the Spring 2021 semester in your Internship 3 course. This morning, we have some housekeeping to go over, and then I'll introduce our guest this morning. So we have about 50 minutes. The class stops right at 8:50. So we have about a 30-minute presentation with about 15 minutes Q&A. If you have any questions, you can feel free, put them in the chat. You can use the raise your hand feature. If you do put it in the chat, Allison will be monitoring. So she'll ask you to unmute and ask your question. And if you raise your hand, then we'll also be monitoring so you can ask your question. Please, I see most of you have all of your full name across the screen. That's perfect so that I can see who you are. And thank you guys again, ladies and gentlemen, for being here so early. And it is cold outside. I'm in Orlando, and I know most of you guys are in Orlando. Some of you are outside, but it was a chilly 37 on my walk this morning. So I'm happy to be back inside in the heat. All right, so good morning, James. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So we have James Gavigan this morning, who's going to talk about from house lights to tail lights, building a successful career in experiential production. James reached out because he wants to be part of the Rosen College and wants to give back from all his industry experience. So I'll let you go ahead and give your bio and take it away. I've also made you co-host if you'd like to share your screen or you have any images or videos or PowerPoints you'd like to share, James.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Great. So let me get going by sharing my screen here, and I'll give you a little background on who I am. I am a graduate of Cal State Northridge in Los Angeles, California, got a BA in radio, television, and film, and worked as the director of concerts for the university. And then I made my way through radio as a street team manager, and then eventually transitioned from running a street team of 30 people that went out and passed out stickers and t-shirts at radio station van hits, over to experiential marketing or event management or mobile marketing are a lot of the names that get used, and have worked for a handful of companies over the years, and now I'm currently the vice president of experiential production at Momentum Worldwide, based in New York. The thing with, and just to sort of set the stage, there's traditional marketing and then there's experiential marketing. Most of you will know traditional marketing because you see billboards, print ads, TV spots, and all of those things sometimes get repurposed as digital ads, that you see a commercial before your favorite YouTube video, or you see a print ad repurposed on Instagram or Facebook. So experiential marketing is a broad term for non-traditional marketing and advertising. And consumers now are more than ever putting a value on experiences. So experiential marketing is that connection between the business to consumer and the business to business setting, which I'm sure you guys are learning in your marketing classes, the differences between the two, even though many times they seem very similar. And some of the popular ways of doing experiential marketing, you probably recognize the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. Unfortunately, I've never worked with that, but it is one of the most well-known mobile marketing tours out there in the United States. And basically, a mobile marketing tour is going to go to fairs and festivals and different types of events, and they're going to have a team of brand ambassadors that are on site passing out hot dogs, passing out t-shirts, doing contests, building brand awareness and brand loyalty by driving around the country and participating in events. There's also event sponsorship. I'm sure many of you have been to a fair or a festival or a sporting event, and you see on the concourse of a football stadium or a basketball arena, a brand has a presence on site where, again, they have brand ambassadors. They also have interactive games. And the way that that comes about is that the brand has spent money with that property to be on site, to have a presence, so they can create a relationship with the fans of that sporting event or that band. A lot of concerts are now sponsored. Taylor Swift has done deals with American Express and Capital One, and they will have a presence on site on the concourse at her concerts. And it's just another way to drive loyalty from her fans or the fans of the sports team to the brand. And then finally, trade shows and conferences, very similar to event sponsorship, but it's a little more targeted on the B2B side of things, and there's two ways that trade shows and conferences go. You have big conferences like CES. There are brands like DJI, they're the drone company. They go there, or Samsung will be on site to promote their newest, latest, and greatest products. There's also ancillary brands like American Express is on site. You don't think of them as a tech company, but a lot of tech companies have credit cards and need their employees to have expense accounts and credit cards. So American Express will be on site to talk to those business owners so they can sign up for their credit card system. And then my company works with them to create an experience that engages the consumers on site and those businesses on site to come to our booth, learn about our client, and then hopefully turn that interaction into an acquisition. So Momentum Worldwide is a large marketing agency that does experiential and events, shopper marketing, sponsorship and partnerships, music and entertainment, social influencer campaigns, and these are a handful of the brands that we work with. You probably recognize many of them just by their name. You may not recognize William Grant by the name, but that's Hendrick's Gin and Floridicana Rum, as well as another group of high-level spirits that maybe you guys have enjoyed while in college. And the one thing to keep in mind or realize is brands don't typically advertise themselves. They are outsourcing their creative and to advertising agencies, out-of-home agencies, digital agencies, event agencies, and sponsorship agencies. A brand will have a marketing team, but there's a lot of work that goes into creating a commercial or creating a mobile tour or creating a experiential activation. So a lot of that work then gets pushed out to agencies like Momentum, the one that I work for. And there's a couple things to know about agencies. There's big agencies, and then there's also small agencies. And what the difference between the two are, and this is very sort of top level, is a big agency is going to have a lot of people, a lot of resources, and siloed responsibilities. So you have a creative department. So that creative department is going to be copywriters and art directors and finishing artists, and they're going to be handling the creative output. Then you've also got client management. They're dealing day in and day out with the clients. They also deal with some of the outside sponsorship activations. They deal with strategy. They deal with analytics. And then you have production. And production is everything from making apps to getting fabrication done to doing a content shoot. And when you get to an even bigger agency, creative is divided into multiple departments. They may have a department of writers specifically. They may have a department of creative thinkers specifically. They may have interior designers or experiential designers. And client management will get segmented out even more as well. Now, when you go to the small agency, a lot of that will fall on one person. So you can be client management, creative, and production all as one person. And I worked at a small agency where I was dealing with the client day in, day out. I was coming up with creative concepts for our clients, and then I was executing those ideas and producing the events and conferences for that client. And it wasn't necessarily that I did 100% of the work myself. It's that I was the main point of content or main point of contact. And then I would come up with an idea. I'd talk to an art director and let them, do all the fun stuff that they do in InDesign and Illustrator and Photoshop. And then I would talk to vendors to get stuff produced. And there was a support system, but it's a lot tighter of a group of people. There are pluses and minuses to both systems. I've worked in both. It's a lot of fun working at the small agency because you get to learn so much and you get to do so much and you're so hands-on throughout the entire process. The big agency has its benefits because you're responsible for something that you ultimately become good at. I'm not good in Illustrator and Photoshop, so getting me to try to make your logo isn't going to give you the best result. But I can produce a concert, I can deal with fabrication, and I do that stuff day in, day out, so I can focus on my specialty and let other experts deal and focus on their specialties. So kind of already talked about client management, the creative department, and experiential production at a top level. I'll spend a little bit more time talking about experiential production because it's what I deal with as the VP of experiential production. So we select and manage vendors. We oversee the fabrication of displays. We handle lights, video and sound, audio production on site. We also, because of the pandemic, we've been doing more and more live streaming and broadcast production. Previously, I probably would do one webcast a year. Now I'm doing one or two a month, and they're ranging anywhere from a Zoom meeting like this up to I did a concert with a jazz band that was in Chicago, and the people that attended the meeting were around the world. So the pandemic has changed some of the responsibilities, but the core idea around putting together a concert still remains the same. It's just instead of having a bunch of people watching it in person, I have 3 cameras watching it so people at home can see the show. And a thing that I spend a tremendous amount of time doing is developing production budgets, because we deal with so much money. You have to be really diligent and really good at Excel and really understand where the money's going. So that would be one of many things that you need to get really good at, is basic accounting and basic understanding of costs, because you are going in this line of work, your client is going to say, we want to do a trade show booth. And your creative team is going to run off and come up with an idea. You need to get that priced out. That then needs to get presented to the client. And you then need to keep track of all of the money that's being spent on that project, because clients don't like it when you go over budget, and clients don't like it when you go under budget too much. So there is a certain responsibility of, there is a definite responsibility of financial management that is important in any production job. We also manage compliance with building codes, and that also includes ADA requirements, because we want every building or everything that we build to be safe and accessible for everybody that is attending or participating in the event. And part of that is developing and implementing health and safety protocols, because health and safety has become so important, especially with COVID. And you may have seen there's COVID compliance officers and all sorts of positions like that, specifically to COVID, but there's also a lot of positions that are more based on general construction health and safety as well. So I started, I guess at this point, does anybody have any questions about what I've talked about leading up, and then I can get into more of how does it all come together? I will take that silence as, or is there somebody there?
I do see some chat coming up from Blake. Blake, you want to go ahead and ask your question? And Troy has one up next.
Well, while we wait for Blake, I see Troy's question, if I've worked with VR at all. Yes. So at Momentum, we have production is sort of spread across a couple different departments. We have integrated production and creative technology. They deal with a lot of the apps and the production of the more digital assets. We also have a content production team. They do a lot of the storytelling, video production, making commercials, doing mini documentaries. I deal with experiential production, and we all sort of come together because a couple of years ago for Super Bowl 50, we did a VR activation that put you on the field of the Super Bowl for you to be the quarterback of you hope to be the winning quarterback on your final last-minute drive. So we had done a complete content shoot inside a stadium with a full offensive team, a full defensive team, coaches, cheerleaders, all of this, like, to make it. We had one of the spider cams, which is that flyover cam that you see at football games, that was shooting in 360 video and 360 cameras elsewhere on the field. Our content team shoots that. Our integrated production team works with a vendor to develop that into a game activation. And then I take that information. I had to get a football made that had a motion activated controller in it. I brought in a 180 screen with multiple projectors and sensors, working with the guys that developed the VR content. And you screen popped up, you like hiked the ball, and things are happening, and you throw the ball, and wherever you decided to throw it, ball went in that direction, and different outcomes would happen. So yes, it's a lot of, there's a lot of people involved in VR, and it gets very complicated. And then just this past September, I worked with Alicia Keys to do an XR stage, which if you guys have ever watched The Mandalorian, or if you saw the Katy Perry Daisy's performance from American Idol, where it looked like she was in a cartoon, that is shot on a floor, an LED floor, and 2 LED walls with a bunch of programming with DeGeis, and there's another server company out there where the cameras have a sensor on it that track to a grid on the ceiling. So when the camera moves, the background moves. So we did a hour-long concert performance with Alicia Keys that was streamed out on her YouTube channels and a bunch of other places for people to watch in support of her new album. So did that earlier this year.
That sounds amazing. And I see a bunch of questions popping into the chat. So before we go on, I think Ariel and Nicole have questions, but I had a question as well. Something that you said was really important, that if you go over budget or you go under budget, the client could be upset. Can you kind of go into detail a little bit about why the client would be upset for either or?
Yeah.
Over or under?
So, like clients, like everybody, has a budget, like we all get a paycheck, and we allot certain amount of money to entertainment. And the going over budget is easy to explain because they told you we wanted to spend $100,000. So if you spend more than $100,000, they may not have that money in their marketing budget, or they're going to have to pull money from another event or project that they have down the road. So if they have, for a year, a $200,000 budget, and they devote, $100,000 for the first half of the year and $100,000 for the second half of the year, and you spend $150 in the first 6 months, that means they only have $50,000 for the rest of the year, and their CFO is going to be very upset, and people are going to be. It's one of those things where I've seen people lose their jobs that they've gone over budget so poorly. Now, on the inverse of it, you would think, oh, I've come in under budget. This is awesome. I saved the client a bunch of money. There is a fine line of saving money, and there's saving too much money. And part of that comes to, some of that really comes from you didn't do your job well on the pre-production to put together a good budget. And why coming in under budget becomes an issue for your client is, again, if they have a $200,000 budget for the year and you come in and say, yeah, we're going to spend all $200,000 in these 12 months for their financial calendar, but you mismanage their budget and you misplan their budget and you only spend $100,000, that client then is left with $100,000 on their books, which they get tax implications. And they also, as a marketing department, may not get $200,000 the next year because their CFO will say, well, you only spent $100,000 last year. Why do you need $200,000 this year? So we're only going to give you $100,000, but you still need to produce the same results. And if the creative idea changes, you're then going to have to make a lot happen with a lot less money.
Thank you so much. And I think we have a lot of questions popping in. Do you mind if we stop screen sharing for a minute so we can see everybody's faces? And then I know we have a lot of great questions coming in. So I'll start with, I believe it was Ariel. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Hi. So my question was, what's your most exciting part about working and having that specific project of yours?
Well, I like the nuts and bolts of the production and figuring out the answer or the solution to the question is like, it's like creating a puzzle, or solving a puzzle. That's what I like doing. That's what I enjoy. I like dealing with production. I like production people and working with them. So for me, that is what I find to be rewarding. And then there's probably two events that sort of stand out for me. One was a handful of years ago. I don't know who is familiar with the Fugees. They're a hip hop act. I shut down the corner of Hollywood and Vine in Los Angeles to do a reunion concert for them to kick off the Grammys. And they reunited to do two shows, the one that I put together and for the Chappelle Block Party. So it was a very stressful and a very exciting thing to work with the city and the mayor and everybody to shut down 4 or 5 city blocks in the heart of Hollywood, California. So that was a lot of fun. And then a couple of years ago, one of our clients was a sponsor of the Seattle Seahawks, and I turned a gravel barge into a floating tailgate party. So that had 600-700 Seahawks fans. We had the band Everclear perform. We had Seahawks legends on site. People got to play cornhole and have a party on a, because there's no place to tailgate in Seattle. They don't have a parking lot. So we were creating a place for them to pre-party prior to heading off to the Seahawks game. So that one was a lot of fun.
My gosh, those sound exciting, don't they? Well, I love the Fugees. If you haven't heard the Fugees, they're amazing, by the way. Thank you so much, James. And Nicole Budrick, you have a great question. Would you like to unmute and ask your question, Nicole?
Hi. So you kind of answered the first part of my question about the most rewarding aspect of your position. You said like production and like seeing it all come together. But I'm also curious if like prior to the pandemic or maybe in the future, if you plan to work or you have worked and traveled to other locations worldwide to like complete your projects.
So the Momentum Worldwide, says that we're worldwide, and part of that is we have offices around the world. So I don't get to travel the world too much. I get to travel the United States quite a bit, however. So prior to the pandemic, I would probably be on the road 60 plus nights a year, because maybe more, maybe 75, because my typical work calendar, I would be at CES in Vegas, then we would be off to South by Southwest, and then I would be at Coachella and Stagecoach, then to the US Open of Golf, then to the US Open of Tennis, and then it's the end of the year pretty much. So that sort of cycle, and then just other projects that aren't as high profile that happen in between. So a lot of travel before. I think moving forward, like in this year, I haven't had to travel. I've been on site to a production studio for 2 different projects, but they were all local to me in New York. So not a lot of travel required, and I didn't, stay the night anywhere. I think moving forward, past the pandemic, there's going to be people that still have to travel. Like I'm going to have to travel for work. If we do a conference, that conference is probably going to have an audience. I'm going to have to be there. So that is, going to be what we end up doing. Now, I think the audience is going to shift. There are going to be many people that still attend in person, but now that people have become so accustomed and so accepting of watching stuff on their computer, I don't think I'll ever do another conference that doesn't have a web streaming component. So I think, and it will open things up. I think it's going to sort of allow a lot more people to attend conferences that they never were able to attend because, you know, a conference badge is very expensive. You guys have a big conference convention center down there in Orlando. I don't know how many of you have heard of CES, but it's a big consumer electronics show in Vegas, or even South by Southwest. The badge to attend those costs $500 to $1,500 per person. So if you're a junior member at a company, they may not see the value in spending $500 to $1,500 plus all the travel for you to go to a conference. But if they could either for a couple $100 or for free allow you the time to sit and watch these conferences in person, I don't see why they wouldn't. And we did a conference for one of our clients. It used to get 1,000-ish people in attendance. It was a summit for small business owners. We switched that to a virtual conference this year. We had over 10,000 participants. So I would not be surprised in the slightest if next year or later this year we do that same conference. We do it in person, plus we have the extension to online.
Wow, thank you. That's incredible. That's a huge bump and honestly, accessibility. Besides having the conference badge, you have to think about hotel, travel, food and beverage. I mean, it can become very costly. Thank you so much. I think up next we have Nicole Bourbano. She asked, what's your favorite project you've worked on? I think you kind of went over on that a little bit. Did you have any other favorite projects? Or Nicole, did you have any other questions you wanted to ask him?
No, that was mainly my question, but it sounds like you've already answered it, unless you can think of any other fun projects you've worked on.
Those are the two biggest ones that I've enjoyed. You know, a bunch of years ago, I did a really fun poker tournament for a client, and it was just, you know, we had 3 professional poker players, and I found it really amusing that like one of the poker players like took it really seriously and tried to win, and he got, you know, beat in like the second to last table. And I remember talking to the 2 other poker celebrities going, you know, I'm not giving him like the watch, like he's not supposed to win. And they're like, well, sometimes they're like, he gets in and he just doesn't want to let go. And I always thought that was somebody taking their job a little too seriously.
That actually can segue into the next question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, James, but Brian, did you want to ask your question? Brian, you had a good segue into what he was just discussing.
Yeah, I actually have questions. The first one was, what has been your favorite client that you've had to work with? And then the second one was, what's the most stressful client you've had to work with?
Well, you know, stressful clients, you know, I don't want to say anything about a client because, you know, but I can talk about a stressful project. And it was one of my favorite projects and one of my most stressful projects. The barge that I did in Seattle was probably the most stressful thing I had ever done because we had to get approval from the U.S. Coast Guard, the fire department, the police department, the port authority, Homeland Security, as well as the port police and the city of Seattle. So dealing with all of those entities, and we did not have our permit to do the event until it was not in my hand until Thursday morning, and the barge opened on Friday for a conference. So that one, like, we had spent thousands and thousands of dollars on something that could have gotten canceled. And I remember walking through doing a site visit, you know, a final inspection with the Coast Guard, and we had a little mishap. One of their inspectors had a small mishap, and I looked to the lead inspector. It's like, are we going to get our permit, or should I just throw myself off the barge? Because we were so, like, I thought we weren't going to get our permit, and that would have just been devastating.
Throw yourself off the barge. That is funny.
Yeah. Well, let me go through. I've got a couple, a few more slides to get through. And I guess we'll sort of talk about how it all sort of comes together. I touched on this briefly, but let me go a little bit more in depth, because this is how a project, any of these projects that I've done, come together. A brand, comes to the agency with their need. And I'll just talk very, candidly about that Seahawks project. Our client said, we want to, we're a new sponsor of the Seahawks. We want to make a splash. We want to do what we can to like really embrace the fans of the Seahawks. What can we do? So our client management and strategy departments take that. They then build a brief, and and a brief is filled with what the client needs are, what local passion points are, and just information about the team, information about the city. And they present that information off to our wider agency team. And that includes creative, production, content, other BLs, strategy. Everybody gets in a room and they present this. And then our creative team goes off to develop a creative concept. And they'll work through the ideas with the XP team or the different departments. And I remember Phil, who was the creative on that, goes, do you think we could do a party on a barge? It'd be really awesome. I was like, I don't know. Let me find out. So while they're still developing the idea, because this is so out of left field, I start calling every barge company up and down the Seattle and Oregon coastline, and 15 or more of them either hung up the phone or just told me flat out no. I found only one company that was willing to do it, and it was because they had done a music video a handful of years ago, and I said, oh yeah, it's just going to be like that. And I had never even seen the music video, so I just lied. I was just like, sure, whatever they did, that's what we're going to do too. And we presented the idea to the client, and they liked the idea. And then I was on a plane the next day to Seattle to take a look at the barge. Sometimes clients don't like the first idea that we pitch to them, and we go back and we have to come up with a new idea. And then, but we'll say the client, likes the idea, and then I am off to Seattle to do a site visit to take a look at the barge, and had to then assemble the lights, the video, the sound. I had to get the barge company to, they had just a wood, deck on it that it was old and weathered and beaten to hell. I paid a bunch of money, and I had them rip all of that up and pour a concrete slab so it was nice, flat, and a good place. Even had them dye it blue so it looked like Seahawks blue, and then we put a football field on top of it. So those are all part of the creative idea, and then we start working through all that stuff in production, and then we produce the event, and then we have to wrap up the event. So it does take, there's a lot that goes in to producing an event. And I got a question for everybody. Does anybody know what this field is? Any idea where this is or what this is?
Yeah, give them a second. Usually you'll start get something in the chat, or Troy said a green one. Ha ha. Funny, Troy.
Citrus Bowl, maybe?
No, Renee is correct. That is Coachella. So that field goes from nothing to housing 100,000 people and the top bands in the entire world performing there.
Can I
and when
ask you really quick, James? What do you
Sure.
what participation do you have in Coachella as a large music festival? Can you kind of describe what your participation is?
Yeah. So Coachella is, one of the biggest music festivals in the world, and it is something that brands really want to be a part of because it brings such a good, passionate music-loving fan base to it. So one of our clients is a sponsor of it as the official card of Coachella, American Express. So we were, told we now have a sponsorship at Coachella. We have a 60 by 60 space. What can we do for Coachella that will create some buzz, excitement, keep our card members happy, keep prospects happy? What can we do? So we come up with the idea of creating a card member only lounge. And that starts with renderings like this that our creative and experience design team puts together, which 3D model, and the creative concept was a secret lounge that had a bar over here in the corner, a little like loungy gaming area. We had a swing in the back, this beautiful archway for people to like walk through and be immersed in this lounge. And none of that existed. Everything that is built and put in here is custom made for our event. So that eventually becomes this. So that's the arch in real life, which is made out of wood and faux painted to look like cement, and a custom routed 3D American Express sign with a large lounge area and a tree that was made to provide shade. And we even had a waterfall in there, like a trickling, tranquility wall. So this space was created for card members to have a place to go. And that's part of a card member benefit of having an American Express card. So events like this is what we do a lot. Like last year, our client Verizon was at the Super Bowl, and they had this big dome that was talking about 5G. This year for Super Bowl, Verizon's still a sponsor. They're currently working and doing, there's a Super Bowl stadium in Fortnite that was built on 5G. So if you're a big Fortnite fan, this Friday you can watch some of the NFL players play Fortnite there's 4 or 5 different games that you can play, all in a stadium built by Verizon.
James, one of the students had a great question about that. Diana, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. So with that American Express, like little lounge that you had at Coachella, how did people know about it? Did you have to advertise it, or just whoever passed in front of it just kind of walked in there if they were American Express holders, or how did it work?
So American Express, they also, at the same time, they've done, so what's going to be tough is this is, such a woe is me problem, is we've done Coachella a handful of times, so they all sort of blur together on what the mechanics are behind them. But typically what happens with Coachella is people buy if you buy your tickets with your American Express card, you also will get a gift for buying your tickets with your American Express card. You also then get notifications. One of those notifications would tell you that this lounge is on the grounds for you to stop by and hang out at. Last year, one of the benefits to coming into our space is that we had an exclusive piece of Ariana Grande merch that was only available for the 2 weekends of Coachella in our space. So that also gets put out on blogs. So people who are Ariana Grande fans are going to want to get into our space. But Coachella is a unique event that they have very limited signage, but as big as the space is, you have a lot of time on there and people will walk around and just sort of naturally find our space because there is a bit of branding in front. And of course, there's also a line to get in, and lines create bigger lines because people want to know what's happening. So they get in line. So a couple things to keep in mind as you like build your career in experiential production or any marketing thing or marketing discipline is to be organized. 50%, if not more, of the work that I do is in pre-production. It is finding the right vendors, working with them, and developing, budgets, developing production schedules, the staffing, all of that planning, meeting with clients and vendors, all of that pre-production takes up half of my time. And if you do a really good job, the event, you don't really have a lot to do on site because you've planned so well and you have put the right people in place to do their job that you're there to oversee the production and keep it moving. And then 25% is the wrap. So that's loading everything out, recycling items that are no longer needed, storing items that you want to use for future projects, and then wrapping the budget because you need to make sure in a timely manner that are, the money that you've spent. Typically, we want to have every vendor paid and close the books on a project about 4 weeks after the end of the project, after the end of the on-site date. Another thing to keep in mind is be flexible. You guys need to learn both Excel and Google Sheets for schedules and budgets because I do half my work in regular Excel. I do half my work in Google Sheets because different clients have different requirements. Same thing with PowerPoint and Google Slides. There are some people that are hopelessly devoted to Google Slides, but we have some clients who do not have access to the Google suite of products. So we also have to work in PowerPoint, and the same thing with a Mac and a PC. I know everybody loves their Macs, but when you work for bigger companies or some companies, you're issued a PC. I work on a PC. Some of my coworkers work on Macs. It's just, but our clients, so it's just one of those things to keep in mind. Take the time to learn both. Do not, I will use an example. There was a young lady who, at my company, who was a business leader. She was hopelessly devoted to Macs to the point that she quit her job because she did not want to work on a PC. She was out of work for 6 months. And if you're that devoted to working on a computer, try to go work for that company because it's just probably going to be easier or better for you.
James, these are such great advice. And I know we have so many good questions that we didn't get through your entire slide deck this morning, but we would love to invite you back. And actually, we have a Prep Connect coming up on the 17th of February, a Wednesday. We'd love to invite you to come and talk to the students then. So I'll send you some info on it because we're just about out of time. I do have just a few last questions that I see have popped in. One of them was from Claire, and she had a good question. Claire, did you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, so my question was, is there a project that you know about that happens every year that you've always wanted to work on?
I think it would be I guess maybe the World Series. I think that would be interesting to work on because I've worked on the U.S. Open of Golf, the U.S. Open of Tennis. I've worked on the Super Bowl. So probably I like sports. I really like baseball. I think that would, be something fun to work on. I'm willing to stick around for a few extra minutes. So if anybody wants to stick around, I'm happy to go on because I have a couple slides I think are kind of important for you guys to hear is being a partner with your coworkers, saying yes or no, but coming up with alternative ideas and being proactive. I had a junior member of the team who I told him like, hey, I need you to set up some iPads. And he said, I don't know how to do this. I was like, it's an iPad. They're made to be set up very easily. You have an iPhone. Like it shouldn't be that big of a challenge. And eventually he just sort of worked his way out of the company. He wasn't proactive enough to find answers. He wanted everything delivered to him. And that sort of goes to my asking smart questions are fine, not lazy ones. And using that iPad example, if he would have said, what password do you want to use? Or what email address do we use to set up these iPads? That's a smart question. But just going, I don't know how to set these up, that's a lazy question.
That is great. And students, I know it's 8:51, so it's class time. I would like all of you to have a fantastic day. Please feel free to stay around for a moment. I would like to get a picture really quick with James, and then we'll stay around for some additional questions. You had so much good things, and it goes so fast, I know.
Yes.
So thank you, and we'll be inviting you back for sure, James.
Sure.
So we're going to go ahead and take a screenshot. So everybody with their cameras on, if you can, really fast, and we'll take a quick screenshot. Let's see. And everybody's saying thank you, so the chat keeps popping up. All right, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. All right, I got that. And I'll send that to you as well, James, so that
Wonderful.
you can have that. And we'll be posting it on our social media. And I wanted to introduce Asli. Hi, Asli. James, this is Asli, our department chair that you've been emailing back and forth with as well.
I see you.
Good morning, James. Thank you, Jessica. This was so wonderful. I'm so excited for our students. Thank you so much for coming, but we're not going to count this one. So we want you to come back again and again. We know you're a New Yorker, but we want you to be a Floridian if possible. Just pop in whenever you can.
Well, it makes these Zoom things make it a lot easier to do that.
Yes, it does. And I will look into maybe having you as an adjunct professor soon. So.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we would like to. Thank you so much. I had a question too, but I didn't want to take away from students' time. So go over their question, go over your remaining slides if you would like, and then if they have more questions, they can. And then I would like to ask one question too.
Yeah, and this is one of the key things is when you're the producer on site, you are in charge of the health and safety of the event. So there are some resources out there that would be worth taking advantage of. The state of North Carolina has a very good crowd manager training course for free. There is a $20 course that you can take that is from a private company. And then FEMA has the IS-15B for special events. That's a free course, and it's definitely worth taking just so you understand, because going to an event, you have to be you're ultimately responsible for the health and safety of everybody at your event. And it's happened a couple times in the last couple of years. One of my guys had to do first aid for a worker that got injured on site. I had to do the Heimlich maneuver on a patron who was choking at one of the events that we did. And both of us had gotten our first aid certifications from the Red Cross. So I can't speak any more highly of being prepared to handle the situations in front of you. And then finally, there's a lot of promotional marketing agencies out there that hopefully soon they'll be back doing mobile tours. Get out on a mobile tour. It's a great way to see the country and learn a lot about this business, as well as just being a brand ambassador, because you guys in Florida have that Orange County Convention Center. All of those trade shows need brand ambassador staff to help pass out, promotional materials and do things like that. It's good temporary work that usually has a pretty flexible schedule. And if you have any friends in bands, become a roadie, move some gear, learn how, a band works, because that's, a very important skill to learn, just the behind the scenes production. And I'm sure your campus has a great student run campus events team that I'm sure are always looking for volunteers for spring fling or spring fling or summer concerts or whatever they do on your campus to, give the students some fun activities. So that's basically all I had. Sorry, I went a little over. Hopefully it wasn't, didn't keep anybody from getting to class.
No, the people who had class left. You were at 294 participants this morning, James. So well attended, very
Wonderful.
well attended. That was wonderful. And I see some chats popping in. If we have about maybe 5 more minutes before we'll let James go, do we have any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any question for James. If not, we're going to, Ashley's going to take it away.
I'm going to steal it. Thank you. Yeah, James, I wanted to ask you a question that I always think, entertainment industry is the biggest agent of change. If you want something to change in the society, no matter about what, leave it to the entertainment industry and it will happen. Do you think, in your opinion, entertainment industry is doing enough of societal marketing? Do you think they are doing what they're supposed to? Have you experienced any example with the organizations, companies that you're working with, or celebrities that you dealt with? Can you give us some examples for students to understand?
Yeah, and there's different, ways. Some of the stuff, I guess there's two things to sort of consider. Is the marketing agencies, for the most part, are working for their clients or brands. So they're trying to do what their brands have, in mind. My agency does have a very strong diversity and inclusion program. We're working on getting a sustainability certificate, and some of this stuff started internally. Like one of the things that I did when I took over in the department was I tried to stop the use of plastic water bottles, because I would get so frustrated on site seeing a bunch of half-consumed bottles of water that nobody remembers who drank what, so they just grab a new bottle. And I spent my entire time walking around picking these things up. So we switched over to 5-gallon bubblers, and we would tell everybody, bring a bottle. That then we started at one event, then it became at more events. So it's a thing that we do. Honestly, I can't say that we do it at 100% of our events, because some of the events, it would cost us more in time, money, and resources to ship a water fountain to an event than it is to buy one case of water for the small event. But we've made those changes, but we've also tried to eliminate the use of shrink wrap. So we then have started using bulk containers that we reuse in cases that get reused and refilled with different equipment every time. We also, one of our clients started a program, and this is a great program that Verizon has started, and other Momentum clients have also started to participate in this program. It's called Ad Fellows, and it is a internship program that Verizon does where if you are selected for the program, they put you on a rotational internship with companies like Walmart, American Express, Anheuser-Busch, Verizon, plus all of the agencies that work for those companies. So we've had Ad Fellow interns at Momentum, and they work there for a short amount of time. Then they go to a different agency and they move around and they learn hands-on. And the big thing about this program, and I don't want to overstate it, but they pretty much pay for you to move to New York, and they give you a travel stipend, hotel stipend, or housing stipend, and you even get, it's a paid internship. So it isn't, it's a very beneficial program, and it can, more information, if you type in Verizon Ad Fellows internship, you can apply online to be a part of that program.
Thank you, James. Again, we look forward to seeing you soon.